One of the most common things I hear as a yoga and Pilates teacher is, I'm not flexible enough for that. The truth is, flexibility isn't a prerequisite for movement. It's the result of it. You don't move because you're flexible. You become flexible because you move. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about learning how to live well on your own terms. Welcome to the Unusual Yogi Podcast, a space for living, moving, and resting beyond the wellness norm. I'm Megan, and here we talk about chronic pain and what it means to live differently in a body that doesn't always follow the rules. You can only assume that the idea that you need to be flexible for yoga or Pilates comes from the media. So, magazines, social media posts, videos, all the images and videos that we consume, see online, whether purposefully or not. And I mean, think about it. You see yoga teachers pose with their heels on the floor in downward dog, or they're doing a crazy back bend, or they're doing the splits. And you end up thinking to yourself, yeah, that's the goal. That's what I need to be able to do. Here's the thing. What you see is usually somebody with years of practice, not somebody at the beginning where everyone else starts. And trying to replicate that without proper guidance often leads to pushing yourself too hard, being misaligned, and potentially even causing injury. And the part that ends up frustrating me the most in all of this is the gatekeeping effect. People don't start something that could genuinely help them because they feel not ready. They feel not flexible enough. Being in pain and telling yourself that you're not flexible enough to move is pretty much exactly the same as refusing therapy when you have panic attacks because you think that you're okay. It's silly. It's silly reasoning, and it ends up holding people back from actually healing. So there are two types of seemingly different people that fall under very similar categories, and I think that it's really important to talk about them both. The first one, the people who are naturally flexible come into a class thinking that they can do everything. They can handle everything that's being thrown at them, right? More often than not, though, these people come in without proper strength or alignment, and that flexibility actually turns into something that could lead to injury. The second group of people are the people that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. Those who are stiff and end up avoiding classes because they think that they're not flexible enough. These people are the people who end up missing out on all the benefits that an exercise modality can actually give them. The similarity between these two groups is that in both cases, people end up ignoring their body's actual signals. And in both cases, people could get injured over time. Flexibility isn't just about muscles. It's about the range of motion in a joint and how your nervous system actually perceives that range of motion as safe. When we don't move regularly, our joints produce less synovial fluid, and muscles and connective tissues actually end up tolerating less stress. That makes our nervous system actually start to guard against new ranges of motion. Movement is supposed to slowly reverse this over time, and I believe that it can if we're doing this in a nice, safe, practical way. So here are some tips and suggestions from me to you. 1, start gentle, start slow, and start semi, if not regularly, to movement. Just enough to start improving flexibility. Number 2, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, so I'm sure a lot of you already know what I'm going to say. Try yin or restorative yoga. It could be honestly such a great entry point for so many people. And holding a stretch for a few minutes actually helps your nervous system relax and your connective tissues to adapt over time. Remember that gaining space in your muscles can take time, though. It could take weeks or even months, but your nervous system will start to feel more relaxed almost immediately. What's great about trying this option is that you can find amazing YouTube videos for free, and you could start on your couch or on your bed at home. The extra bonus, if you decide to do the yin or restorative route, is that gentle movement and stretching also support your mental health. Activating your parasympathetic nervous system through stretching actually ends up reducing your stress and anxiety, improving your mood, and even helps you decrease your cortisol. So instead of thinking to yourself as stretching as getting bendy, start thinking about it as actually starting to feel better in both your body and your mind. My third, final, and most important tip in this is that, and this is probably one of the least observed things, strength matters. Flexibility without strength is not productive. Even gentle strengthening exercises complement stretching and help prevent injury over time. And I know this as a fact. I wasn't doing any hamstring strength exercises, and I hurt my hamstring real bad thinking that I was more flexible than I was. Another example the other way is somebody who loves going to the gym, let's say. You love going to the gym and you have tight hamstrings and you want to do a Romanian deadlift. Working gently to slowly improve your hamstring flexibility will actually help you get better at your Romanian deadlift over time because you're adding depth. You're actually going to be able to build even more strength on that and more flexibility on that. On the flip side, people who are hypermobile may have the flexibility but lack the muscular control. And the same rules still pretty much apply. Move safely, build strength, especially the build strength part. Just if you're going to do that, move at a more controlled range before letting your body decide what it might be. And I think that that is just a great rule of thumb for anybody who's hypermobile. And something else to really think about and really consider while on your stretching journey, if that's what you decide that you want to be on, is the difference between feeling pain versus feeling a stretch. You always need to be able to distinguish between a stretch that feels relieving and a stretch that feels like pain. Stretching to pain activates the stretch reflex. That's what it's called, which actually makes muscles contract and increase tension. So the safe rule of thumb with this one, and one that I always tell my students, is that stretches should always feel like a warm, gentle release and be something that you could hold for up to 5 minutes. So while you're stretching next time you go stretch your hamstrings, I want you to ask yourself, is this something I could hold comfortably for 5 minutes? If the answer is yes, perfect. If not, let's back off a little bit. So here is the practical framework that could help you start. Start smaller than you think. Even 5 minutes of gentle stretching or mobility work really counts. It counts way more than you think. Use props, chairs, blocks, pillows, bolsters, anything. Please. They're not shortcuts. They're actually tools, and they make movement more accessible and safe, and they're wonderful. At some point during your whole journey, if you start using props, I promise you, you can use props to actually make things harder. So start with trying to use them to make things better, and then eventually you'll want to go the other way. And once again, learn to distinguish stretching from pain, the feeling of stretch versus pain. Overstretching will trigger protective reflexes. It's just a fact of your body. Comfortable stretching is what you're aiming for, always, which goes into learning how to focus on your breath and alignment. Moving with mindful breathing actually helps your nervous system relax and supports your body's natural flexibility gains, not only because it is a meditative and connective way to be, but if you start holding your breath, you'll know that you've gone too far. And what a great way to know, even if you're not sure yet, right? Remember that you do not need to be flexible to start. You just need to start where your body is right now. The small steps, especially like when you're learning how to gain some flexibility, they really start to compound over time. And when it comes to range of motion and strength, your confidence in movement improves when you give yourself the time to get there. A key mindset shift I'd also like to share is that movement isn't a reward for having the right body, and flexibility is not a personality trait. It's usually developed over time. When people think that flexibility is the goal, movement becomes a test and not a practice. So instead, I want you to start asking yourself, what movement can you do right now exactly as you are? Start asking yourself, how can you explore movement without judgment or comparison? Which is why, by the way, I love doing things at home. I also want you to ask yourself, what small movement today will help your future self, and your future self will actually thank you for. Remember that movement isn't about looking a certain way. It's about caring for your body. It's about reducing stiffness, improving strength, and feeling more confident in your own skin. And hopefully also just feeling better. Being less stiff might make you actually be in less pain. And who doesn't want that? The thing is, if you've been waiting for your body to feel ready to move, that day may never come. Readiness grows through movement. Start wherever you are, move with care, and let flexibility, strength, confidence follow over time. It's okay if it doesn't happen tomorrow. It might happen in a year, but at least you're going to feel like your best self eventually. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the Unusual Yogi podcast, the biggest help that you could give is leaving a review, sharing this episode with a friend, or following me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or wherever you watch your podcast at The Unusual Yogi or The Unusual Yogi Podcast. If this episode resonated with you and you'd like to support the podcast in a tangible way, there is a small support link in the show notes down below. Absolutely no pressure. Just know that it helps keep this space sustainable and reach more people who might need it. So until next time, take care of yourself in the way that supports you.